Good evening. I want to invite you to see if you can find the tiny white speck on the image behind me. You will have to look carefully, and I hope that you can actually identify that, because that is us. That is our home. That is our planet. This is one of my favorite images, and some of you may have seen it before. It's entitled The Pale Blue Dot. It was taken in 1990, on Valentine's Day, actually, by NASA's Voyager 1 spacecraft at a distance of 6 billion kilometers away from us. And when you look at that tiny, fragile dot, you just realize, how did we get here? When we look at images of our planet, this kind of really puts things into perspective for me. When I look at that, I see sort of fragility, I see wonder, I see beauty. Every single thing and every single person that you know is contained in this planet, this tiny blue dot. And when we look at images of Earth from space, we don't see borders, we don't see conflict. We see beauty and we see connectedness. Because like it or not, as a society, we are connected. The other thing that this makes me think, when I look at even more detailed images, is, man, how did we get here? Why is our little piece of rock the perfect Goldilocks planet? Because it sustains life. And right now, it's the only planet that we know that has this awesome responsibility. I hope that you find this image inspiring when you look at it, because these are the kind of images I get to look at every day. And as a scientist, these are the kind of questions that I also get to ask every day. As the head of science for NASA, I actually get to work on missions that will eventually answer those questions. And that is really cool. Now, if I'm being honest, which of course I am, I did not set out to become the head of science for NASA. I didn't even know there was a head of science for NASA. In fact, honestly, I didn't even really see myself as a scientist. I mean, if I asked you, close your eyes and picture a scientist, would you think of somebody that looks like me? I'm betting somebody said yes, yay. So I'm betting that most of you thought of Einstein or the crazy doctor from Frankenstein. He's alive. So, and we take the things that we see, we take the images from things that we sort of experience every day. So mostly it's movies and television. And we create stereotypes. I mean, there aren't that many of us that get to interact with scientists every day. But more than just the picture, how does the word scientist make you feel? Now, if we were introduced at a cocktail party, and I said, "Hi, I'm Nikki. I have 2 children, 14 and 16. James, my son, he loves football. And Darcy, my daughter, she's a wonderful singer." You would immediately be able to connect with me. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you like to watch sports on a Saturday. Maybe you like to, have a wicked karaoke session. I know I do. There'd be things that we could actually talk about, and we would relate. Now, if I said, "Hi, I'm Nikki, I'm a scientist," you would be less likely to engage with me. But God help me if I said, "Hi, I'm Nikki, I'm a space plasma physicist." I am guessing that you would immediately get a text or a phone call, and you'd be looking for the exit. But in each of these scenarios, I'm actually the same person. I am a space plasma physicist, but I'm also a mum that has to, plan school pickups and drop-offs and meals and sports practices. And that's just the person that I am. And by the way, if you think space plasma physics sounds scary, it's just the stuff the universe is made of. So like it or not, you interact with space plasma physics all the time. So in this talk, I actually want to explore not just what it means to me to be a scientist, but what it also kind of should mean to you and how we really are all scientists. So my fascination with space started at a really, 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 really early age. I was 8 months old. So, Apollo 11. My father scooped me out of my crib, sat me up in front of the family TV, and gave me a running commentary of Neil Armstrong walking on the moon. And he, by the way, claims that that is why I'm the head of NASA. So, but despite that, he continued to really give me incredible inspiration about space my whole life, particularly as a child. He would look up at the moon, and he would say, "God, can you imagine what it would be like to be up there and look down here?" I was hooked. I wanted to be an astronaut. Like many children, I dreamed of sailing with the stars. But despite these nice stories, I was still a world away from a job at NASA. I loved science. I always did love science. I went to college and I studied physics, but I struggled with physics. And I struggled because it turns out I was suffering with imposter syndrome, but I was scared to ask questions because I was worried that my mostly male-dominated classes, that the other students would think I was stupid. And I started to worry, I'm not enjoying this anymore. Obviously, I'm not a scientist. So I thought, I'll go be an engineer. So I did a master's in satellite engineering and telecommunications. And now suddenly I was being told, you ask the wrong questions, Nikki. Apparently there's such a thing as the wrong questions. So they said, you think about you think about the why all the time, not the how. You think like a scientist, not an engineer. Woohoo, I'm a scientist. So I went back. I went back, and I sort of happily went back to do a PhD in space plasma physics. There we go again. And I studied the Earth's aurora and kind of what powers them. And I really hit my groove when I was doing my PhD. I really did. I was in the midst of an amazing research group. I felt really supported. I love working on teams. But with no female role models to look up to, I actually never considered that I would do anything in science for a permanent career. So fast forward to a small science conference in Alaska, and I've armed with my brand new PhD, very proud of it, and I'm very excitedly talking about my research. And at the end of my presentation, a senior scientist came over to me and said, would you be interested in applying for a postdoctoral position at NASA? And that's, there's those moments in life where it's possible to be totally cool. Yeah, wasn't one of them. So I gushed about how much I'd always wanted to work for NASA. Anyway, I did indeed. I was selected to do a postdoc, and so I moved to Washington, D.C. And I've had, an amazing career since. If we can see if we're going to get this one to come up. There we go. So this is one of my favorite. This is in a clean room. I'm actually not serving deli meat on a grocery counter. I'm in a clean room. That's the spacecraft behind me. So I came and I had the great pleasure of working on many NASA missions. My favorite one, you've already heard about Parker Solar Probe, flying through the atmosphere of our own star, the sun. I then led the heliophysics division at NASA headquarters, and heliophysics is basically the study of the sun and everything that it touches. So how it affects our planet, how it affects all the planets in the solar system, and how it actually carves out a protective bubble for our whole solar system as we orbit around the Milky Way. It protects us from the vagaries of interstellar space. Give your son some love every now and again. And then after that, I had the great privilege earlier this year of being selected to be the head of science for NASA. And so in this role, I get to not just do heliophysics, but I also get to do planetary science, astrophysics, earth science, and biological and physical sciences. And so it really is this amazing job. And I could talk to you for hours about the stuff that we do, and I actually mean that. I can, but I only have about 8 minutes left, so I'm gonna keep going. So It's an amazing, wonderful job that I have, and I'm very humbled to do what I do. I usually describe myself as like equal parts excited and terrified every day, because it's a huge responsibility. In the Science Mission Directorate, we have over 140 science missions in various different stages. They're looking at sort of the very center of the sun, how the sun affects our planet, how all of the planets in our solar system kind of behave. It looks at the far reaches of the cosmos, and it looks at our planet, our fragile home. So some of this might sound kind of out of this world to you, and honestly, some of you may be thinking, who the heck cares? It's just a complete waste of money. But what I want to actually show you is how, this is actually one of our recent launches, but how space affects you and how, honestly, you are part of it. So this is a recent launch. We launched last month. It's a mission going to an asteroid. It's actually we launched the day my wonderful father died. And I stood and watched that image and kind of felt like, we're sending love to heaven, Dad. So he would have been very proud. But I ask you, when you sort of prepare for your day, and you're going to drive to work, how many of you look at a map? How many of you know what a map is? All right. No, of course we don't. We pull out our phone, we plug in our direction, our destination, and magically our phone gets us to the right place. Usually with the quickest journey, not always if you use Google Maps. So that's GPS, that's space technology. That's what you have. And things that we take for granted are, in our everyday life, have their roots in the space program. Things like scratch-resistant lenses, landmine detection, CAT scans, LEDs, athletic shoes, foil blankets, freeze-dried food, the jaws of life, insulin pumps. I could go on. Portable computers, and the most important thing, because I have teenage children, cell phone cameras. Yes, without NASA, there would be no selfies. All right. But you also have to think how things that everyday things really are rooted in the space business. Things like baby formula, things like wireless headphones, things like memory foam mattresses. And memory foam mattresses might sound, a little like, that's very recent. But actually, memory foam mattresses, memory foam itself, is rooted in the Apollo program. And it was a special kind of plastic foam that was created to keep the Apollo capsule and its astronauts safe on re-entry. A few years later, it was also used by the airline industry to make those sort of the airline seats that will sort of cushion blows. It actually helps keep people a lot more safe and actually gives you a smoother landing when you're coming into land. And next time you put on your athletic shoes, remember that the foam, it's like a custom foam that is used. That comes from spacesuits. That is a sort of patented formula that we use to make spacesuits. And so every day, Nike uses that to allow you to walk on air. But space is more than just technology. We've just covered the technology. But if I let you look at this amazing image up here, this to me is like space in all its beauty. So when we look at that, we're looking at billions and billions and billions of miles away, billions of light years ago. This is the birth, essentially, of our universe. And this, of course, is from our fairly recently launched James Webb Space Telescope. And every image I see is just beautiful. It's just, if you can't marvel at anything else, marvel at the beauty of our universe. If I take you a little closer to home, then this is our own star. This is the sun. Are you aware that the sun is actually capable of having very, very violent storms on the surface? If you look kind of in the center, you can see some bright activity there. That is a solar storm about to erupt. If it happens to come towards our planet, then it can cause big impacts for us here at Earth. One is it can cause the beautiful northern lights. Again, science and space in all its beauty. But you're also looking at an electric current system in the sky that can cause big problems for power grids, for undersea cables, for long pipelines, and really can affect the technology that we now completely rely on. So we want to make sure we give our star some love. But space also lets you explore. We've sent rovers to the moon and to Mars. We have taken close-up images of the planets in our solar system. He remembers when we had the New Horizons mission go out past Pluto, and we discovered Pluto had a heart. It's beautiful. And we brought back samples recently from an asteroid. I'm particularly proud of that. We brought that samples back so we can actually start looking to see if the building blocks of life are in these ancient asteroids that are sort of present in our solar system. There's so much amazing stuff that we do. Now, I'm honestly a heliophysicist. I study the sun. So if you ask me what my favorite thing in the solar system is, I will say the sun. But think about if I asked you, what's your favorite thing in the solar system? Typically, I hear Mars because it's the red planet, and we're sort of all fascinated by it. Or I hear Saturn because it has the rings. But really, our favorite thing in our solar system should be Earth, because it's our planet. It is our fragile home. And for decades now, NASA has observed our planet from space. And from space, we can track climate change. We can look at the quality of the air that you breathe. We can look at the quality of the water and the amount of water. We can look at sort of floods and droughts. We can help first responders as they go in to try and rescue people from extreme events like hurricanes, tornadoes, or volcanic eruptions. And we can also help our firefighters that are going in to put out our forest fires, our wildfires. We do that with NASA. The food you eat is also really impacted by NASA. If you think of any sort of animal product or any vegetable product, crop product, it doesn't matter whether it's from the sea or from the land, whether it is grown on a farm, whether it's grown in your backyard. Every single one of those needs the same things. It needs sunlight, it needs water, and it needs soil to be able to thrive. And so, in the 21st century, we are seeing how climate change is actually affecting our food security by making food harder to grow. And this is because of increasing temperatures, also the extreme events that we see a lot more of, and changes in the precipitation, so changes in where the water is. Things that used to be very lush and now experiencing droughts, while other places are experiencing floods that have never had that before. So NASA scientists work with other organizations, with fishers, with farmers, with ranchers, to really make sure that we get the products that they need, so they know not just when to water their crops, but how much water. Water is a very precious commodity, and it means that we can get a better yield of our crops. Now, food it's a basic need for all of us, and it's also kind of a reminder of home. You think about, your favorite meal, you think about home. And so that really is one of our closest connections to Earth. But not only are we doing this on Earth, but right now, 400 kilometers above us, astronauts on the International Space Station are also helping us with food production. They're largely looking at how to grow food in space because, of course, we want to be able to feed our astronauts as we return to the moon to stay and then go on to Mars. But here on Earth, what that does is it actually tells us about how to grow food in very austere, very, very tough locations. And so we have a big benefit from that. My personal favorite that they're doing on the space station is they're using tiny devices about the size of a thumb drive to do medical and biomedical research. So these little tiny, they're called tissue chips. These little tiny cards have sort of bits of they have human cells in them, and they can actually mimic human organs and human cell function. And what that actually means is it's helping us to be able to safely, because we then look at like how it interacts with different types of medication. So it means that we can much more safely prepare drugs for clinical trials. Also, we're looking at sort of customized medicine. So, we want to do personalized medicine. These cells, when they're up in space, they act very, very, very similar to how they do in your own body. In a lab on Earth, they act differently. So, again, it's using our space station really as a laboratory, a natural laboratory. So, so as we want to provide sort of personalized medical kits for astronauts as they go on long-duration missions to space, we also here will benefit from kind of personalized medicine that really targets to us. I'm sure all of you have, you're like, oh, when I have a headache, I have to take this brand of painkiller. Whereas somebody else is saying, that doesn't work for me, I have to take this one. Why? Why does the human body act differently? And that is what we're doing on the space station. So I kind of want to leave you, I hope I've given you some excitement of what we do in space. Space is literally full of science. And I hope that you feel yourself now connected to space and understand kind of the need for doing it. It is our natural laboratory. It allows us to do things, it allows us to push boundaries, and it allows us to go further and to do more with our technology here at Earth, as well as just our human curiosity. Now, I started about picturing a scientist. A PhD, by the way, does not make you a scientist. That's just a label. Humanity, by their very nature, is curious. We're curious. We want to know more. We want to know more about the world around us. We want to know more about how things work. And we marvel at the cosmic beauty of images like this. So, I want to kind of leave you with maybe an ask, that when you hear the word scientist now, you'll actually think of yourself. And when you look up into space, I really hope that you feel connected to it and you feel that, we really are doing something great up there. We're basically all made of stardust. And space inspires, space unifies, and space brings hope for us all. Thank you very much.